There was no curiosity? Is that what you're telling me? Like, this weird movie about a dancing, cocaine-snorting ape didn't tickle your curiosity. That is the weirdest thing ever, in my opinion.
Understand how it would be triggering for him. Everybody else in the movie that I throw under the bus, though, fuck him.
No! God, please, no! No!
Welcome back to Torn Apart, and today we're doing something a bit different because, well, I went to the cinema and I saw something that kind of attracted my attention, to say the least, because we finally had our own release of Robbie Williams' Better Man, and I'm sitting here being like, why is this one of the biggest box office bombs in the US in history? I need to know. I need to find out why.
I believe in you.
And I want to also motivate as many people as possible to go and seek this movie out, especially Europeans, because you probably know Robbie Williams, right? And now as I was sitting in the theater, I was like, do I know Robbie Williams? Do I like Robbie Williams? And yeah, apparently I love Robbie Williams. And weirdly enough, the theater was almost empty. It was the first week of release, so it was last week. I didn't get the chance to go to the premiere because honestly I was quite tired. Maybe even the mood would have been a bit different, but this probably showed me a lot. I was there literally lip syncing almost every single song that they decided to put in this movie, even though this is not even a jukebox musical kind of movie where you get one after the other and basically almost no story. It's kind of like an excuse to showcase as many musical moments and songs as possible. This is not one of those, of course, but honestly, like, I was there, I wanted to sing my heart out, and I was looking around me and no one else was doing it. I didn't actually pay attention to the people's ages, so just to see if there was like a bit of a change of generations there. And I'm actually looking forward to watching Wicked Part 2 here in France, just to see that maybe musical theater people slash musical fans slash music fans don't actually participate that much here, especially when it's at a cinema, like they actually behave. Because I heard horrific things about the Wicked showings in the US. I'm not a huge fan of musical comedies or even like musical biopics, to be more precise, because there are a couple of musical comedies that I actually really like. La La Land is a really good example of that. Sweeney Todd, of course, as well. Those ones that have like original music and original concept, and they have a specific look, a reason to exist beyond being just in a theater, for example. If you think about Wicked, is a really good example as well. Wicked is a really weird universe, and even though I was incredibly skeptical about it, it's one of those films, it's one of those stories that lends itself so well to the cinema, CGI, and different special effects, and honestly just a shit ton of budget dedicated to it as well. And Better Man is exactly like that as well, because this is a weird concept. In the last few years, we've had quite a lot of those. We've had Piece by Piece just last year, which is the Pharrell Williams Lego movie. And then there are other ones like Maestro by Bradley Cooper, which came out also last year, if I'm not mistaken, which was kind of okay. This is one of the things that I don't like about these kind of biopics and musical biopics, where you can tell that they're doing like the kind of Oscar baity thing, where they're going step by step through the Wikipedia kind of like plot line. We go through the different stages of someone's life, and you can see every single cliche on screen, plus maybe it doesn't even look that good, and it's only based on the performance of the main actor. There is nothing else, thematically speaking, besides this kind of huge like deconstruction of someone's ego. That's the kind of musical biopics that I don't really enjoy. Bohemian Rhapsody is a really good example of something that I didn't enjoy, mostly because it said nothing about Queen. It was just about Freddie Mercury himself, and it felt just wrong. It felt like it was missing a huge piece of the puzzle. But another movie that I could definitely compare Better Man to is Rocketman. Like, honestly, while I was watching this movie, I was like, is Robbie Williams the perfect like legacy of Elton John? And I'm not talking about like musical history, as in they played the same kind of importance when it comes to genre defining music. I'm not actually saying that. I'm saying when it comes to their career, and when it comes to their personalities and how they want to shape and create a show for everyone, and they actually create a character that is so beyond who they are, and at the same time they cannot escape it anymore. These two films are different, of course, because Elton John was doing that. He was being so extravagant, and he was of course going deep into drugs as well, mostly because of his repressed sexual orientation, the whole idea that the world was basically not seeing the real him and not accepting the real him. We have the same thing going on here for Robbie Williams, but it's an identity crisis that doesn't come from a sexual orientation. It comes a lot from daddy issues, of course. It also comes a lot from cultural issues, as in him being from a lower class British culture, and the idea that those kind of people, we don't really see them succeeding in the musical industry, especially if they don't put up an accent, if they don't actually give up everything that is part of their identity. So it was kind of amazing how Robbie Williams kind of managed to stay true to himself in a way that was very raw, because he keeps like taking a piss out of people, being very sarcastic, and basically that's how he got his shot as well. He says that he got his first shot at being in this boy band by just winking at the guy who was doing the auditions. It had nothing to do with basically the way that he was singing. It had everything to do with his attitude and the way that he portrayed himself to the world, in the way that he wanted to give a performance. People could already tell that from his young age, and that's something really, really beautiful and that I love about this film. In the last few years, we've had other ones. We've had, for example, Bob Marley, One Love, which I actually haven't seen, but I've heard really, really good things about. But I'm sitting here being like, what is the difference between Better Man and all of these musical biopics? Why does it stand out so much, and why did I like it so much? Because of course it is following most of the cliche that we know about this. People not really considering him as someone worth their time at the beginning of his career, and kind of like underestimating him basically, and him not being good at it until someone basically forces him to like express himself and put his heart in his music and in his lyric writing, for example. Or even the idea that he does a lot of drugs, and the drugs kind of define him and his persona, especially when he is on stage. There are a lot of, for example, discussions where people are like, but you look so happy on stage, you seem to have so much energy. And Robbie Williams is like, that's exactly the problem. This is not who I am. This is the kind of thing that I'm forcing myself to do for you, to entertain you. And it's kind of fascinating, of course, because I love this idea of the tortured artist who is kind of like putting everything on the line to get any sense of self-esteem, because basically he has a lot of incredible self-esteem issues. He defines himself a lot by what people think about him, what every single person on earth thinks about him, and this kind of destroys his personal life. So all of these are cliches that are apparent among some of the best musical biopics that have ever come out, but they work here not only because there is a monkey in this movie, because yes, Robbie Williams is being played by a CGI monkey, and I will address that very soon as well, because I think there is a lot of interesting things that we can deconstruct about this. But I think it also has to do with the fact that you can tell that it feels very genuine. You can tell that the music, and you can tell that the way that just this movie has been put together, it doesn't feel like it's just ticking boxes out of a perfectly well-made script. It is actually trying to tell a story, trying to deconstruct the character of Robbie Williams so that we can understand it, and so that he can basically become a real person again. And I really love that. It's the same kind of thing that we have going on with Rocketman and Elton John, basically going to therapy in full costume and trying to like tell us about his life and the way that he's been basically wearing a mask for so long, and that it destroyed a lot of his personal relationships. And Robbie Williams is exactly the same. The thing about the monkey is exactly why I ended up watching this film at the cinema, because I was like, I need to see this. Of course, the critiques were incredibly good, and that motivates me as well when it comes to deciding which films are worth the cinematic experience. But I went in because I wanted to see a monkey sing and dance and do cocaine, because it's such a weird concept, and I'm a huge fan of the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Rise, War, and the new one that came out last year, Kingdom, as well. So I'm a huge fan of like anthropomorphic monkeys slash apes slash chimpanzees just in general, and I actually do agree that you end up like relating, identifying, and caring more about the monkey doing all of these things instead if it was just a Robbie Williams. But the thing that fascinates me is that across the entire marketing campaign, people have said that the director, who is the director from The Greatest Showman, by the way, he is responsible for that movie as well, basically comes out and says because we decided to play him as a monkey, mostly because that's exactly how he portrayed himself. He was basically just a dancing monkey for the public, and he had no agency when it came to how he behaved basically on stage and also outside of that stage as well. But I think there is something more than that, and this is mostly why I love this film, because I feel like the decision of making him a monkey and not just a human being kind of reflects how Robbie Williams has grown as a person, how he's done the work, he's gone to therapy, and he's basically realized that if he put himself in a movie as a human being, it would just serve his ego once again, which is something that he's been working on for years and years and years, and he doesn't want himself basically to go through that again. So in the way that he's portrayed himself as a monkey, it's kind of reflecting the idea that this is a mask, this is not 100% him throughout his entire life, especially if you look at his musical career. But at the same time, you can tell that he's decided to do that because he wants to show you that he's a different person now. If you look at the pictures of him now and the pictures of him throughout his life, now they're two completely different things. And it also tells a story about the personalization, the idea of that mental illness where basically you look at yourself in the mirror and you can't recognize yourself anymore. You see yourself as a completely different person. This is why he keeps seeing different versions of the monkey himself wearing different clothes and coming up to him like during his concerts, basically just shouting at him that he's basically lying to himself, that he's going through an incredible identity crisis and he needs to deal with all of these personas that he's created, and he needs to figure out who is Robbie Williams. Is it all of them put together? And this comes together beautifully in like a concert where basically he's singing "I'm here to entertain you," and he starts going through this weird CGI PS3 kind of like war slash battle against all of these different versions of himself, and it's actually quite bloody and quite graphic as well. There is a version of him monkey like not having any skin at all, which reflects like one of his music videos that became viral, of course, like a long time ago. Maybe you don't even recognize it or see it right now in your memory, but I'm gonna show it to you just in case, because his music videos have always been quite weird.
What the fuck is this? I don't know.
And I love this scene. I love how audacious this film was, as in it's really trying so many different things. Like the rock DJ, for example, musical moment is incredible. It's done even better than The Greatest Showman. I think it's done even better than some of the best moments in Wicked as well, as in you could tell the energy of this scene. You can tell the energy of everyone playing with it, and the CGI and the real kind of locations are perfectly blended together, and everything works out so beautifully at the end of the day. And I was just sitting there singing my heart out. Of course, I was actually like just moving my lips. I was not singing.
With a touch of just stop singing.
Like, I want to tell you this as a disclaimer because I didn't want to like ruin everyone else's experiences, but I will do it once I get the Blu-ray back at home. Just to say that the cinematography was incredible, and the way that they staged some of these like musical moments were so beautiful. There is a really incredible romantic moment which kind of reminded me of the beautiful moments from La La Land as well, where you're kind of like playing with the limits in between reality and fiction, and you sing in this song and you're like going through this montage of the beautiful moments that they went through together, him and basically his ex-wife, and at the same time they're like meeting each other for the first time once again, and they're performing all of these kind of emotions for us. There's a lot of CGI involved because it's taking place on a boat, and there are a lot of like basically other boats in the background. There is fireworks and stuff like that. I think it takes place on New Year's Eve, like right at the very end of the year with the countdown and everything, and I don't know, it just felt like one of the most beautiful romantic things that I've seen in a really long time.
'Cause if there's somebody calling me on, she's the one.
It kind of like made me wonder, why aren't there movies made like this? As in, yes, I get it, you want to like bank as much as possible on the life story of these people who are famous, but like, why don't you actually give it a style? Why don't you give it a voice? Why don't you embody every single theme within this movie, so the identity crisis, through the choice of showing it through the lens of a monkey? Like basically what Pharrell Williams did with the Lego movie. Even though I'm pretty sure that, even though I haven't seen it, I've heard things about about it, that he did it mostly for superficial reasons because he probably loves Legos and he was like, why not? This seems like a very colorful and fun idea. Honestly, I do not understand why people didn't engage with it, mostly because you can't really use the excuse of like, we don't know who this guy is, so we're not gonna go see a biopic about him. When you watch Maestro, do you actually know who this composer is? When you watch the movie with Angelina Jolie, Maria, do you know who Maria Callas is? I'm pretty sure that most people do not, right? Especially in the US. Come on, don't try to convince me that like you know who Maria Callas is. Most people know anyways.
I smell bullshit.
And most of the times, like when you go see movies like La La Land, do you know the story? Do you know the characters? No, you don't. So I'm sitting here being like, that's a weird excuse. I feel like maybe the marketing wasn't like clear enough, or maybe just the fact that it came out at the end of the year fighting against movies like Mufasa and other ones that I can't remember right now. Maybe because we're so used to it being like Oscar bait, people thought that it would be the same. Maybe people don't like monkeys. I really don't know. Like honestly, let me know in the comments if you, for one reason or another, decided not to go and see this movie, because if your entire like argument is we don't know who Robbie Williams is, I don't get it. There was no curiosity? Is that what you're telling me? Like this weird movie about a dancing, cocaine snorting ape didn't tickle your curiosity. That is the weirdest thing ever, in my opinion. And I loved also how they represented the musical industry, and also like the idea of working a little bit with the boy band thing, because when you think about it, we don't really have that many musical biopics about boy bands. Like NSYNC. I'm pretty sure it would be an insane looking movie if they made one about NSYNC, right? It's definitely interesting because I love the idea of like boy bands like being marketed at like gay people like in the 90s, early 2000s, but at the end of the day, them being like, wait a minute, women will love this shit. And that's exactly what happens. Yeah, because pop music is really, really popular, and especially that kind of boy band pop music is really, really popular with women. So of course the fans went crazy for them and went crazy for Robbie Williams as well. I also enjoyed the humor. I loved how funny this movie is, and it has that classic kind of like British humor that most people like don't even think about anymore. Maybe also that's why I enjoyed this movie, because it kind of reminds me of a weird kind of like Monty Python movie and absurdist comedies that like we don't really see that much anymore. And honestly, it was just perfect, and I'm not shocked that it was nominated at the Academy Awards for the best special effects. And when I look at this film, and when I look at things like Dune, for example, when I look at things like even Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, or even Wicked, I feel like Better Man is a better example of how to make special effects, as in they're so well integrated within the real life locations, within this story, which shouldn't work at all. When you see, for example, like a really cute grandma interacting with a tiny chimpanzee, those like emotional moments shouldn't really be working, but they do, because the VFX is so incredibly well done, and the mocap performances of course work so well as well. I actually cried during this movie because I lost my grandpa last year, and I actually made a video with him as well. And there was this moment where like the song Angel comes up, and it was just my eyes just watering, and I just was crying throughout that entire sequence, because I love when people do this. I love when just people say the most human, like normal things ever. You love your grandma, and you're trying to remember her, and you're trying to honor her, and you're trying to make her proud, basically. And it's something that is so like human that everyone can connect to, and it's something that this movie like exploited really, really well. And I actually like tweeted Robbie Williams being like, thank you for doing this, because like it reminded me of how I want my grandpa to be proud of me wherever he is right now. So this is a movie that is really, really emotional, even though it is playing with those cliche like things that we expect from these kind of like biopics. It's doing everything so perfectly, and if you can watch it, if you can't rent it out, if you can go to the cinema, support it, because you will not have a bad time. Even if you don't know Robbie Williams, I can guarantee you a good, interesting, fun time with this movie here. Check it out.
Okay, I love you. Bye-bye.
But anyways, if you like this video, as usual, here at the bottom I'm gonna be putting you other thumbnails of things that I've worked on, which kind of go along the same topics of the things that I've talked about today. As usual, here at the top, the thumbnail of the video that is coming out in the next few weeks. Having said that, don't forget to smash that like button. Every single time that you do that, you make sure that we get yet another biopic starring a celebrity being portrayed by a monkey.
Can I count on you?
Who should be next? Maybe Trump. I would actually pay to see like a weird musical comedy about his presidential campaign and election and his entire life basically while he's president, not while he's the businessman that we know because of the movie The Apprentice, and him being portrayed as a monkey. I feel like it would be so much more interesting and fun to watch, and definitely not as traumatizing as real life. I don't know, you tell me if this is a good idea, but I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
In the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show.
Uh-oh. Stinky poop. Poopies. Funny poopies. La 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 la. Funny poop. Poop funny. Wee. Yay for poopy. Good poopy. Poopy funny. Ha ha ha. Poop 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 funny. Yay. Fun fun poop. Hee hee hee. Poop poopy. Yay. Poop make me happy happy happy. Uh-oh. I think I made a poopy. Pooping pants, no diaper, that's funny. Oopsie. Poopy underwear now. We want poopies. We want poopies. Poop.